There is a kind of man women don't forget. Not because he was perfect. Not because he gave them everything. But because something about him stayed. Long after the messages stopped. Long after the relationship ended. Long after they told themselves they had moved on. He didn't chase. He didn't beg. He didn't try to prove his worth. And that's exactly why he became impossible to erase. Most men believe attraction is created by effort. By giving more, loving harder, explaining better. They're wrong. Attraction is created by self-control, boundaries, and the courage to walk away. In this video, I'm not going to teach you how to manipulate emotions. I'm going to show you why some men leave a permanent mark on a woman's mind. Without raising their voice, without playing games, and without losing themselves. These are not tricks. They are principles. And once you understand them, you will never approach love the same way again. Welcome to the channel, Stoic Love Wisdom. This is where we will learn, explore, and share valuable lessons about love. In today's video, I will reveal to you 7 things you do that will obsess women, a new perspective, helping you better understand the factors that determine a happy and sustainable relationship. Let's explore with me the secrets to building a strong and meaningful love. Before we start, find a quiet place, put on your headphones and relax. Let all your worries melt away, and let the messages in this video help you calm down and feel the most complete. Are you ready? Let's start now. Rule number 1, you stop trying to please her. When I was younger, I believed love was something you earned. If I was kind enough. If I listened enough. If I gave enough. I thought being agreeable made me valuable. It doesn't. What it actually does is teach a woman one dangerous lesson. That your worth depends on her approval. And the moment a woman senses that, desire quietly begins to die. Here's the uncomfortable truth most men learn too late. A woman does not become emotionally attached to the man who tries hardest. She becomes attached to the man who does not need to try at all. Not because he is careless. But because he is complete. A man who is constantly pleasing is a man constantly adjusting himself. His opinions, his schedule, his boundaries. Until there is nothing solid left to lean on. Women don't fall for that. They feel unsafe around it. When you stop trying to please her, something strange happens. At first, she may be confused. She may test you. She'll disagree just to see if you fold. She'll withdraw slightly to see if you chase. She'll challenge your decisions to see if you apologize for having them. This is not cruelty. It's instinct. She is asking one silent question. Is this man centered in himself, or centered in me? Most men fail here. They over-explain. They soften their tone. They retreat. But the man who has learned restraint does something else. He stays calm. He stays respectful. And he does not move. Not out of ego. But out of self-respect. Stoicism teaches us a brutal but freeing principle. You are responsible only for what is within your control. Her moods are not. Her approval is not. Her attraction is not. Your conduct is. The moment you stop managing her emotions, you start governing your own life again. And that's when attraction flips direction. Because now, she feels it. You are not trying to win her. You are choosing whether she fits into your life. That shift alone can keep a woman thinking about you long after the conversation ends. Let me be clear, this is not about being cold. It's about being unavailable to disrespect. You still listen. You still care. But you no longer perform. You don't rush to reply just to seem interested. You don't agree just to avoid friction. You don't sacrifice your values just to stay liked. And here's the paradox. The less you try to be loved, the more memorable you become. Because now, your presence feels earned, not guaranteed. A woman becomes emotionally hooked not when you give her certainty, but when she feels contrast. Warmth, paired with boundaries. Interest, paired with independence. Affection, paired with self-control. When you stop pleasing, she starts paying attention. She replays conversations. She wonders where she stands. She notices the silence you're comfortable sitting in. And silence, when backed by strength, is loud. I've watched this happen more times than I can count. The man who bends becomes forgettable. The man who stands becomes unforgettable. Not because he dominates, but because he is anchored. He does not say yes to keep her. He says yes only when it aligns with who he is. And if that means she walks away, he lets her. That, more than any compliment or grand gesture, is what leaves a mark. Rule number 2, you build a life that does not revolve around her. A woman does not become obsessed with a man because he is always available. She becomes attached to the man whose life already has momentum. A direction that existed before she arrived. I learned this the hard way. There was a time when my days bent around one woman's schedule. My plans adjusted to her mood. My priorities quietly shifted without me noticing. I thought that was devotion. What it really was abandonment of self. And women feel that immediately. Not consciously, but viscerally. A man without a life of his own feels heavy. Even if he is kind. Even if he is loyal. Even if he loves deeply. Why? Because he is silently asking her to give his life meaning. And no woman wants that responsibility. Attraction dies the moment she realizes. If I leave, he collapses. Stoicism teaches us something ruthless but necessary. No one is meant to be your center except yourself. Not your partner. Not your children. Not your desires. Your principles come first. When your life revolves around her, she senses it in small ways. You reply too quickly. You cancel plans too easily. You're always free. At first, she enjoys it. Attention feels good. But soon, something shifts. She stops wondering about you. Because she already knows. And mystery is oxygen to desire. Now let me tell you what happens when you do the opposite. When you wake up with a purpose that has nothing to do with her. When your schedule is full, not with distractions, but with meaning. When your energy is invested in building something that will outlast the relationship. She feels it. Your time becomes valuable. Your presence feels intentional. Your absence feels noticeable. Not because you are playing games, but because you are living. A man with direction creates emotional gravity. He doesn't chase. People orbit him. And here's the quiet truth women rarely admit. They don't want to be the destination. They want to be invited along the journey. When your life is empty, she becomes the journey. And that suffocates attraction. When your life is full, she becomes a choice. And that ignites it. This is where many men misunderstand Stoicism. They think it means emotional distance. It doesn't. It means emotional sovereignty. You can care deeply without clinging. You can desire her without depending on her. You can love without losing yourself. In fact, that balance is what makes love powerful. I've seen women grow restless around men who have nothing going on. And I've seen the same women become emotionally tethered to men who were rarely available. Not because they were avoidant, but because they were engaged with life. Those men didn't say, "I'm busy." They showed it. In how they moved. In how they spoke. In how they never rushed. When you have a life of your own, something subtle happens in her mind. She starts fitting herself into your world. She asks about your plans. She wonders where she stands. She thinks about how she shows up in your life, not the other way around. That reversal is everything. And here's the hardest part for most men to accept. If she leaves, your life continues. Not out of bitterness. Not out of pride. But because it was never built around her in the first place. That calm resilience. That quiet certainty that you will be fine. Is deeply unsettling to someone who is used to being needed. And unsettling becomes unforgettable. Love is not always about brilliant moments, but often about patience, listening and accompanying in every small step. It is those simple things that nurture a lasting bond. That is also the reason why I believe that every experience in love is an opportunity for us to grow and become stronger. If you feel this, please click like as a way to spread positivity to more people. And if this is your first time visiting our channel, click subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any lessons. I also look forward to hearing your thoughts. What is the smallest but most meaningful thing you have ever realized in love? Leave a comment below, maybe your answer will become a source of inspiration for others. Now, let's continue our journey to explore deeper perspectives right away. Rule number 3, you say no, and you don't explain yourself. There is a moment in every relationship when a woman tests the shape of a man's spine. It's rarely dramatic. It's subtle. A request that crosses a line. A suggestion that compromises your values. A tone that assumes you will comply. Most men say yes without realizing what they just gave away. Not their time. Not their energy. Their authority over themselves. And once that is gone, attraction follows it out the door. When you say no calmly, without anger, without apology, without a long explanation, something fundamental shifts. You are no longer reacting. You are deciding. Stoicism teaches a simple rule. If you do not govern yourself, someone else will. In relationships, that someone else often arrives disguised as love. Men are taught to believe that saying no creates distance. The truth is the opposite. Saying no creates structure. And structure is safety. A woman may resist your no in the moment. But she respects it in the long run. Because now she knows. This man has limits. And he will protect them. Here is what most men misunderstand. No is not rejection. It is clarification. You are not saying, I don't care about you. You are saying, I care enough about myself to remain intact. That distinction matters more than you think. I've watched men talk themselves out of attraction by over-explaining. They justify their boundaries. They soften their refusal. They negotiate their own limits until nothing is left. A woman does not hear strength in that. She hears uncertainty. And uncertainty in a man creates anxiety in a woman. A grounded no sounds simple. I'm not comfortable with that. That doesn't work for me. I won't do that. Then silence. No follow-up. No defense. No need to convince. The silence is not punishment. It is confidence. When you explain too much, you send one message. My boundaries are up for debate. And once that door is open, it never truly closes. But when your no is clean and final, something deeper happens. She begins to measure her behavior. She adjusts. She becomes aware of the cost of crossing you. Not because you threaten. But because you do not bend. Stoicism is not emotional suppression. It is emotional discipline. You feel the discomfort of saying no. And you tolerate it. You don't rush to relieve tension. You don't rescue the moment. You let reality stand. That ability alone sets you apart from most men. And here is the paradox few talk about. A woman feels freer around a man who can say no. Because now she is not leading. She is responding. She doesn't have to manage you. She doesn't have to push boundaries to feel you exist. Your no tells her. There is someone here. I've seen women become distant from men who always agree. And deeply attached to men who occasionally disappoint them. Not because disappointment feels good. But because it signals depth. It tells her there is something solid beneath the surface. The man who cannot say no is predictable. The man who can is respected. And respect is the soil where attraction grows. Not flowers. Not flattery. Respect. There is a moment when she realizes something unsettling. You are not afraid of losing her. Not because you don't value her. But because you value yourself more. That realization lingers. It follows her home. It replays in her mind. Because a man who can walk away from what violates him cannot be controlled. And what cannot be controlled is never forgotten. Rule number 4, you master your emotions, especially when it matters most. There is nothing more revealing than how a man behaves when he feels uncertain. Not when things are going well. Not when affection is flowing easily. But when messages slow down. When tone changes. When silence enters the room. Most men collapse here. They ask questions they don't want answers to. They seek reassurance they should never need. They react emotionally, and call it honesty. What it really is loss of control. And once a woman sees that your emotions control you, she no longer feels held by your presence. Stoicism does not teach you to feel nothing. It teaches you to feel without leaking. You notice the tension. You observe the anxiety. You acknowledge the discomfort. But you do not hand the steering wheel to it. Because the moment your emotional state depends on her behavior, you have surrendered your center. And women feel that instantly. Let me say something unpopular, but true. A woman is not disturbed by your emotions. She is disturbed by your inability to contain them. When you panic at distance. When you rush to fix silence. When you demand clarity too soon. You force her into the masculine role of emotional regulation. And attraction dies there. The Stoics believed that the highest form of strength was remaining unmoved by what you cannot control. Her mood. Not yours to manage. Her uncertainty. Not yours to solve. Her pullback. Not a signal to chase. It is a moment to stand still. When you remain calm while everything feels uncertain, something powerful happens. She becomes aware of her own emotional movement. Because you are not mirroring it. Her agitation has nowhere to land. And in that stillness, she feels you. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But deeply. Most men confuse emotional control with emotional distance. They are not the same. You can be warm without being reactive. Present without being needy. Interested without being anxious. That balance is rare. And rarity creates value. Here is a truth learned through experience. Women test emotional strength not to hurt you, but to see if you can hold space. Can you remain grounded when she is unsure? Can you stay composed when she is emotional? Can you avoid collapsing into explanation, defense, or pursuit? If you can, she relaxes. Because now, she knows. There is someone here who is not governed by fear. The man who cannot control his emotions seeks resolution immediately. The man who can understands timing. He knows that clarity rushed is clarity ruined. He knows that silence, when respected, often resolves itself. So he waits. Not passively, but confidently. When you don't react, she begins to self-regulate. She reaches out. She clarifies. She closes distance on her own. Not because you manipulated her, but because you didn't destabilize the connection. You didn't contaminate the moment with insecurity. Emotional control also means something deeper. You do not punish her with coldness. You do not withdraw to provoke guilt. You do not use silence as a weapon. That is weakness disguised as restraint. True control is clean. You stay consistent. You stay respectful. You stay centered. Even when it costs you comfort. I've seen women lose attraction for men who loved them intensely, but could not handle uncertainty. And I've seen women become deeply attached to men who stayed calm when everything felt unclear. Because calm communicates something powerful. I trust myself, regardless of outcome. That confidence is contagious. Here's the hard truth most men resist. If losing her destroys you, she will feel it, and she will pull away. If losing her would hurt, but not break you, she feels safe leaning in. Because now, she is choosing you, not carrying you. Rule number 5, you stop explaining yourself. Most men talk themselves out of respect. Not because they lie. Not because they are dishonest. But because they explain too much. They explain their intentions. They explain their boundaries. They explain their silence. They explain their decisions. And every explanation carries an unspoken message. I need you to understand me so I can feel okay with myself. That need is felt instantly. And attraction weakens there. When I was younger, I believed clarity saved relationships. I believed that if I just communicated better, things would stabilize. So I explained. I explained why I was busy. I explained why I disagreed. I explained why something didn't sit right with me. What I didn't realize was that I was slowly training women to evaluate me. To judge whether my reasons were acceptable. To decide if my boundaries were valid. To weigh my worth against their feelings. That is not partnership. That is submission. Stoicism teaches something that modern dating culture avoids. You are not required to justify what is aligned with your values. If something feels wrong, that is enough. If a boundary exists, it does not need a speech. The man who explains excessively does not look considerate. He looks uncertain. And uncertainty erodes desire faster than cruelty ever could. Silence, when chosen, not forced, is powerful. Not the silence of avoidance. Not the silence of punishment. But the silence of self-trust. When you make a decision and allow it to stand without defense, you communicate something deeper than words. I am at peace with myself. That peace is rare. And rarity creates gravity. Here's what most men don't understand. Women do not need full access to your internal reasoning. They need consistency. When your actions align with your words, explanations become unnecessary. When your life has structure, your decisions explain themselves. Over-explaining is often driven by fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of conflict. Fear of being seen as the bad guy. But a man who fears being misunderstood will always be misunderstood. Because he keeps moving his position. The man who stands still, calmly, forces others to meet him where he is. When you stop explaining, something subtle shifts in her behavior. She listens more closely. She asks better questions. She feels the weight of your words, because there are fewer of them. Your presence becomes heavier, not louder. And weight matters. Let me be clear. This is not about being dismissive. You don't ignore genuine concerns. You don't shut down healthy communication. You simply stop narrating your existence. You answer what is asked, not what is imagined. You clarify when clarity is needed, not when anxiety demands it. There is a difference. A man who explains everything is predictable. A man who speaks selectively is intriguing. Because now, she cannot map you completely. She senses depth. She senses restraint. She senses something beneath the surface. And what is not fully visible becomes memorable. I've seen women grow restless around men who constantly reassure. And I've seen those same women become emotionally invested in men who let moments breathe. Not because they were confused, but because they were engaged. Silence invites reflection. Explanation kills it. Here is the uncomfortable truth. If your boundary collapses without explanation, it was never solid. A real boundary does not need defending. It needs honoring. And when you honor it quietly, others feel compelled to respect it, or reveal themselves. Either outcome works in your favor. When you stop explaining, you reclaim authority over your life. You stop asking permission to be who you are. You stop negotiating your standards. You stop leaking energy into moments that don't deserve it. And that self-containment changes how you are perceived. Love is a great lesson in maturity. It challenges us with fragility, teaches us patience through waiting, and gives us strength after being hurt. Here, I don't just tell stories for you to listen to, but for you to reflect on yourself and find your own lessons. If you find it valuable, please click like and subscribe, so you don't miss out on the shares that can change the way you look at love. Now, get ready with me, because the rest will have a lot more depth waiting for you. Rule number 6, you know how to disappear without resentment. Disappearing is not leaving in anger. It's not punishment. It's not silence meant to provoke fear. That is not strength. That is wounded pride wearing a mask. True disappearance is calm, quiet, and final. And because of that, it lingers. Most men disappear emotionally long before they leave physically. They stay in the relationship, but withdraw warmth, presence, and respect. That creates confusion, not attachment. What creates attachment is something else entirely. A man who is fully present, until he isn't. No drama. No accusations. No speeches. Just absence, grounded in self-respect. Stoicism teaches acceptance of impermanence. People change. Feelings shift. Attachments loosen. The man who resists this reality becomes bitter. The man who accepts it becomes free. And freedom is magnetic. When you disappear correctly, it is never sudden. There were signs. Boundaries crossed. Standards ignored. Effort no longer reciprocated. You noticed. You addressed it, once. Calmly. And when nothing changed, you chose yourself. That choice echoes. Here's what makes this so powerful. You don't vanish to make her miss you. You vanish because staying would cost you your dignity. That distinction matters. One is manipulation. The other is integrity. Women feel the difference. Most men leave loudly. They explain. They accuse. They seek closure through confrontation. And in doing so, they hand over the last of their power. The woman remembers the chaos, not the man. But the man who leaves cleanly. He leaves a vacuum. No emotional debris. No guilt hooks. No unfinished arguments. Just silence where presence used to be. And the mind hates unfinished patterns. When you disappear without resentment, she is left alone with her thoughts. Not your anger. Not your pain. Just the memory of your steadiness. And that is unsettling. I've seen women forget men who begged them to stay. And I've seen women obsess over men who simply said, "This no longer works for me. I wish you well." And meant it. No bitterness. No revenge. Just alignment. This is not about being heartless. It's about refusing to abandon yourself to keep someone comfortable. Stoicism does not ask you to suppress emotion. It asks you to not be ruled by it. You feel the loss. You feel the ache. But you do not bleed on the person who caused the wound. You walk away clean. And here's the part most men don't expect. Disappearing with dignity changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as the man who was left. You become the man who chose. That internal shift is permanent. And women sense that in future interactions. A man who knows he can leave is not easily disrespected. A man who leaves without resentment is impossible to forget. Because he didn't try to be remembered. He simply refused to stay small. When you disappear correctly, you remove access, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. You don't check in. You don't hover. You don't monitor her life from a distance. You let reality unfold without you. That restraint is rare. And rarity creates obsession. Rule number 7, you walk away the moment respect is lost. Love can survive many things. Distance. Silence. Even conflict. But it cannot survive contempt. The moment respect disappears, love begins to rot, quietly, invisibly, and irreversibly. Most men feel this moment, and ignore it. A dismissive tone. A sarcastic comment. A boundary crossed twice. A joke at your expense that wasn't really a joke. They tell themselves it's minor. They tell themselves they're overreacting. They tell themselves love means enduring discomfort. That lie destroys them. Stoicism is ruthless on this point. What you tolerate, you teach. Every time you stay where you are diminished, you reinforce the lesson that you are safe to mistreat. And once that lesson is learned, it is rarely unlearned. Walking away at the loss of respect is not emotional. It is ethical. It is the refusal to participate in your own erosion. A man who stays after respect is gone is not loyal. He is afraid. And fear is visible. Here is the truth most men resist. A woman does not lose respect for a man suddenly. She loses it gradually. And then tests whether he notices. If he stays silent, she goes further. If he adapts, she escalates. If he tolerates, she finalizes her conclusion. This man will stay no matter how I treat him. At that point, attraction is already dead. The Stoic response is simple, but not easy. You notice the shift. You address it once, calmly, directly. And if it continues, you leave. Not with threats. Not with ultimatums. Not with emotional speeches. You withdraw access. This is where most men fail. They wait for certainty. They wait for proof. They wait for closure. But respect does not announce its death. It reveals it through pattern. And a man who trusts himself does not need a verdict. He needs alignment. Walking away when respect is lost does something profound. It rewrites the ending. You are no longer the man who was slowly diminished. You become the man who refused to be. That ending stays with her. Because it contradicts the story she was telling herself. I've seen women forget men they fell out of love with. And I've seen women never forget the man who left. The moment they crossed a line. Not because he punished them, but because he showed them a mirror. A mirror that said, "You don't get to keep access to someone you no longer respect." That mirror is unforgettable. This rule is not about ego. It's about identity. If you don't leave when respect is gone, you will slowly abandon yourself. And once you do that, no relationship will ever feel safe again, even with someone new. Stoicism teaches that dignity is not something others give you. It is something you enforce. Quietly. Consistently. Without resentment. The man who enforces dignity does not need revenge. His absence is enough. Here is the final truth, learned only through loss. A woman may stop loving you. She may stop choosing you. But she will never forget the man who chose himself the moment she stopped respecting him. Because that man did what most cannot. He walked away not because he stopped caring, but because he cared enough to remain whole. Conclusion. Attraction does not come from effort. It comes from alignment. These 7 rules were never about controlling a woman, manipulating emotions, or playing psychological games. They were about something far more uncomfortable. Mastery of self. A man who stops pleasing, builds his own life, says no, controls his emotions, speaks less, leaves cleanly, and walks away at the loss of respect, is not chasing desire. He is embodying it. Such a man is rare because he is not shaped by fear. He is not negotiating his worth. He is not asking love to validate his existence. And that is why his presence stays with her. Not because he tried to be unforgettable, but because he refused to abandon himself to be chosen. Women do not become emotionally attached to men who give them everything. They become attached to men who remain whole regardless of outcome. Men whose calm cannot be shaken. Men whose boundaries do not move. Men whose absence feels heavier than their words. That kind of man does not need to announce his value. His behavior does it for him. Stoic love is not cold. It is disciplined. It allows affection without dependency. Closeness without surrender. Connection without self-betrayal. And when love ends, as it sometimes does, the Stoic man does not collapse, accuse, or chase closure. He leaves with dignity. That ending becomes the memory. If a woman is ever haunted by a man like this, it is not because he hurt her. It is because he showed her something rare. A man who could love deeply, without losing himself. And that, in a world full of men begging to be chosen, is impossible to forget. So today's video has ended. Thank you for taking the time to watch it all. I hope you have learned valuable lessons and these shares will help you on your love journey. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to receive more interesting content in the future. I'm very grateful for your support and see you again in the next videos. Wishing you all love and happiness.